The world our protagonist used to know, yeah, that didn't stick around for long. Crazy storms rolled in and portals popped up in the sky, flooding the place with demons like a bad nightmare. Monsters were everywhere, ripping everything apart. People had to fight just to survive. In the middle of all the madness, he stood his ground and faced those monsters head-on. Every single day he kept battling, getting no breaks. Weeks turned into months, and by the time a full year rolled around, he wasn't just hanging in there. He was tougher, sharper, and more dangerous than ever. Then came 10 long years, and guess what? He was still out there, sword in hand, taking down anything that crawled out of those portals. He never threw in the towel. But everything changed when this crazy powerful beast showed up and took our hero down without breaking a sweat. They looked at him like he was a joke and told him to just give up since the world he was trying to save was already toast. The hero figured this monster was the one pulling the strings behind all the chaos. The beast called his strength useless and told him to become its weapon. The hero straight up refused and laughed right in its face. Even though he was hurt, the hero charged at the beast, attacking it with everything he had. The fight got intense as they exchanged blows. He kept trying to block the monster's brutal hits, fighting with all the stubbornness in him, but the beast was way stronger and effortlessly blocked every attack. The monster declared that no matter how hard the hero fought, he'd always be weak against such immense power. Our hero took a brutal hit that he just couldn't handle. He got knocked down hard and struggled to get back up but kept pushing through. The beast showed off its overwhelming power, launching a devastating attack that wrecked everything around it. After a rough battle, our hero finally crumpled to his knees, totally spent and beaten. Meanwhile, the monster stood tall, glaring at him, knowing he was out of the fight. Then the hero noticed a strange glowing pendant on the beast's chest. Ignoring the pain, he jumped up and struck with everything he had. The monster, not backing down, countered with a ferocious attack. The hero hit the ground, feeling the pain, but he saw the pendant starting to crack and glow intensely from his previous strike. The monster let out a furious roar, hurling insults at the hero. As the hero struggled to his feet, the pendant shattered and the monster screamed, panicking and begging for it to stop. Suddenly, the monster's body began to fade away, leaving behind a brilliant light that lit up the whole area. The hero lay there, hurt and surrounded by destruction. His eyes began to close as he looked up at the sky, whispering about how beautiful it was, especially with a meteor streaking across. The scene switched to a young boy casually walking through a modern city in simple clothes. A big sign warned about a Class B Namsen gate, telling civilians not to enter and asking heroes to register their ID. The boy kept walking, ignoring the warnings for civilians to stay back. He made his way to Yongsan and Seoul and stopped in front of a tall building. Out of nowhere, he leaped with amazing speed, easily clearing the wall. As he landed, an alarm blared, alerting everyone about an unregistered entry. The boy walked into a big green area inside the gate, looking around like he was completely unfazed by the alarm. A voice called out from a distance, and a group dressed in official gear approached him, asking if he was lost. The leader, unsure of what just happened, invited the boy to join them as they walked away. The boy just stood there, saying nothing. One girl pointed out that his clothes made him look like an average guy, not a hero. Another teased him about being a luggage carrier. They all ended up laughing and suggesting he was just a baggage carrier left behind by the real heroes, but they seemed uncertain. The young boy replied that he got where they were coming from but had just arrived and wasn't planning on leaving anytime soon. One of them laughed, saying he had told the others the guy was careless and got left behind. The leader mentioned he'd seen many like him and knew how they thought. He advised the boy to not be reckless and to start with a lower-level gate since real battles were way different from what you see online. He also suggested getting a hero license and passing the test first, mentioning that Namsen Gate was ranked C, recommending F-rank gates instead. But the young boy shot back, saying he got their good intentions but wasn't thankful for their concern. The group fell silent, surprised by his blunt and challenging response, but the leader told them to chill. Eventually, they shrugged him off, figuring someone like him would have to learn the hard way. As the boy remembered the leader's warning about gate dangers, a huge orc appeared right behind him, ready to attack. But the boy stood confidently, not even bothering to turn around. As the threat loomed, his eyes turned golden yellow, and he calmly muttered that he'd waited 10 years for this moment. The young boy's extraordinary ability and unexpected reaction take the monster aback. Then the young boy launches a head strike that beheads the orc's head with a single strike. The beast falls dead to the ground, its blood spreading across the area. After killing the monster, the young boy says nothing has changed from his memories. He still feels that same surge of strength and determination as he stands in the aftermath of the quick battle, smoke swirling around him. He picks up the fallen weapon and examines it quietly, considering what he should do next. Turning to the monster's lifeless body, he notices a glowing gate emerging from its wound. Inside, he finds a low-grade magic stone and takes a moment to pick it up. He remembers how he used to overlook these kinds of things, but now he sees them in a whole new light. Just then, he senses something off and tenses up as heavy footsteps draw nearer. A gang of big, tough monsters shows up ready to attack. The young boy reacts with lightning speed, dodging their first blow and countering by hurling the stone at one of the orcs, cleanly taking its head off. He charges ahead boldly as the monsters come at him, unafraid. Meanwhile, the group is walking away clueless about what's going down behind them. One girl glances back, thinking about the brash boy, and wonders if he's alright. She asks if he might end up getting killed, which surprises her teammate. The leader reassures them that if he's an intruder, the control center will be on him in no time. Control center agents are already on their way since a rank C gate like Namzen needs someone B rank or higher to deal with it. The leader tells the team the boy will be fine if he avoids fighting, and everyone agrees. One of them jokes that the cocky kid is probably quaking in his boots, just waiting for someone to come to his rescue. But the boy keeps fighting bravely, throwing powerful punches and moving fast. He dodges their attacks and strikes back with skill, leaving the monsters bewildered and outmatched. He leaps up and takes down a monster with a surprise hit, finishing it off in one go. Blood spills onto the ground among the other defeated monsters. Feeling pretty good about himself, he thinks he scored 3 magic stones and throws his bag over his shoulder, ready to keep going. Not a bad haul, he figures, with 12 low-grade stones and 16 below-average ones. As he's lost in thought, an agent from the control center shouts at him from a distance, telling him to follow. He turns around, curious about what they want. A few uniformed agents step in closer and say they need proof that he's a registered hero, otherwise he'll have to go with them. He rolls his eyes, skeptical about whether they're actually from the control center at all. One agent insists he needs to comply immediately. Getting irritated with their persistence, he snaps back that they're really getting on his nerves. The agents tense up, and one tells a fellow agent to fetch some cuffs to restrain him if necessary. They warn him that if he doesn't cooperate, they might have to use force. One agent grabs his arm while another warns him that if he gets hurt resisting, it's on him, urging him to come along quietly. He easily shakes off the agent's grip, leaving them stunned by his strength. Glancing at them with a cold stare, he tells them to back off and leave him alone. The agents charge in, pulling out special batons and activating a 4th-rank magic seal to try and restrain him. He thinks it might work on orcs, but it definitely won't stop him. In a flash, he takes down one of the agents, making him scream in pain. He turns to the others and warns them to back off if they don't want to get hurt. The agents just won't back down and go for another attack, but our hero brushes them off with a simple defensive stance. They try to kick his head, but their legs end up getting smashed against his solid body. He counters their strike and retaliates with some serious punches. He takes one agent down with a powerful hit, then turns to the last one, ready to finish it. The agent freezes, totally caught off guard by how strong he is as our hero glares, showing that he can handle them all. In a flash, our hero disappears, leaving the agent stunned. He pops back up behind him and lands a heavy blow that takes the agent down, who ends up groaning in pain on the ground. Our guy asks why the control center goes after unregistered heroes. The agent says the registered ones usually don't have issues unless they break the rules inside the gates. He starts getting nervous and confused when our hero brings up rift zones. Rift zones are basically doorways to other worlds filled with weird monsters. The resources from hunting these monsters turn into a new energy source. Places fully controlled by the government are called gates, while the unstable and untouched areas are rift zones. Our hero asks if the agents will keep hunting him down for entering the gates without permission. The scared agent admits it's true and explains that any unregistered hero sets off an alert, sending agents to chase after them. He warns that rift zones are trickier to get into than gates, and that the Hero Association won't overlook any breaches. But our hero stays cool and collected, not worried about the warning. The agent gets angry, wishing he'd reported our hero sooner, and calls him insane and dangerous. Before he can do anything, our hero grabs his face and slams him hard into the ground. He looks down with disdain and calls him worthless. As the agent struggles to get back up, he screams in anger, promising to kill our hero next time. The scene shifts in his mind, showing a distorted image of someone screaming. He hears a voice full of suffering and feels himself fading, pulled into something unknown. He starts to wonder if this is death. He sees his former self clearly before entering this body. Floating in the air, he stares at it, surrounded by strange light as if caught between sky and earth. The figure calmly asks him for his name. He says it's Seudojin and feels like he's on the verge of death. If his wish is granted, he'll fade away peacefully, no hassle. But his body refuses the request, leaving him confused. It says the boy has no attachment to life. After struggling for 10 years, he's been betrayed by someone he trusted, His country is gone, and he's lost friends and family. It speaks sadly about a life that feels useless, no matter how much he tries. It asks if he feels the same way. Dojin responds that he just hopes the families left behind will end up like him, even if his own life is a mess. His older self lets out a sigh and asks what he really wants in simple terms. Dojin puts a hand on his chest and mentions it's something he hasn't shared yet. The scene shifts to the gas and digital complex in Seoul, now called the Hero Complex, where Gate product shops have taken over 8 companies. Dojin walks down the busy street and stops in front of a shop, wondering if this is the right place for his next move. At a shop where he usually buys mana stones, a young clerk greets him with the usual welcome. Dojin says he wants to sell what he's gathered and empties his bag on the table. The stones are still stained with blood, making the clerk uneasy. He quietly grumbles that people should clean them first. Still, he says there are a lot, so it will take a while to sort them. He offers coffee while Dojin waits, and Dojin just responds that anything will do. Dojin sits quietly, sipping his coffee while the clerk sorts the stones. After he's done, he lists 12 low-grade, 16 mid-grade, and 5 slightly high-grade stones. He explains that the store takes a 40% cut, so Dojin will get around 5.5 million won. Dojin cuts him off, frustrated about the high commission. He points out that he did all the hunting, so why should the store take so much? The clerk smirks and mentions that most places take 45%, so this deal isn't too bad. He tells Dojin he can leave if he's not happy with it, and that he won't find a better deal anywhere else. Dojin responds coldly, deciding not to sell and picking up his stones to leave. As he turns, the clerk grabs his arm and demands 350,000 won for sorting, coffee, blood cleaning, and the towel. Dojin says he doesn't have any money and dares the clerk to try taking it by force. The clerk grins wickedly and says C-rank heroes have his back, calling Dojin a nuisance. A group of tough-looking guys walk in, led by a big one who asks what's going on. Dojin locks eyes with him and the tension in the air thickens. The clerk starts sweating as things take a turn for the worse. Dojin swiftly takes down the big guy with a single powerful punch, and he drops to the floor, totally out of it. Dojin sizes up the rest of the crew, who go down just as easily, then heads over to the nervous clerk. He casually mentions that the new commission is just 1% and gives him a chilling smile, suggesting he should manage things better next time. As he walks out, he casually says he'll be back. Next, we jump to Dojin's place, where he slams a big stack of cash on the table. His grandma and sister look shocked. She asks where he got it, clearly stunned by his actions. Dojin claims he lent it to a friend who had a successful project. His grandma narrows her eyes, feeling like his story sounds fishy. She questions if he really has a friend like that. Dojin explains it's someone from his past, back when he was growing up. She's still a bit uneasy, but seems to accept it while holding the money. His sister Yang, all excited, asks if they're rich now. Dojin smiles and says they are. His grandma and sister start celebrating, dancing around the house. Dojin watches them enjoy themselves but can't shake off this uneasy feeling. He remembers wishing for his family to be completely safe. The entity spoke to vanish before giving him a response. Then he recalls waking up as Siu Dojin after having been someone else in a devastated world. He thinks about how the safest home in Korea costs around 110 billion won. Even though he isn't tied to any crazy promise, he's determined to make it happen. He tells himself that amount won't mean anything once he gets his strength back. Siu Dojin remembers that everything in this world, from gates to monsters, feels way weaker than what he dealt with back in his ruined world. He recalls the horrifying monsters from his past and realizes his current strength isn't even 10% of what he used to have. Suddenly, there's a loud knock and someone calls out for Dojin, breaking his chain of thought. He calmly tells his grandma to keep his sister inside while he checks it out. At the door, he finds 2 big guys glaring at him. They demand Siu Dojin repay a huge debt, claiming he owes 48 million won. Dojin quickly puts together that they're collectors after the money the original Siu Dojin borrowed for his grandma's hospital bills. The debt has ballooned, and they insist he hand over all the cash he just got from the gate, as per their contract. As they try to strong-arm him into paying, Siu Dojin clocks one of them with a punch that packs a punch. The other guy is left stunned by how fast and strong he is. Dojin steps closer and points out that he's already paid over 9 million won and should actually be asking for his money back. The guy steps back, fear on his face. He mutters in disbelief, asking if he's really the same Siu Dojin he used to know. Dojin doesn't respond to that question. Instead, he tells the guy in a menacing tone to let his boss know he'll be stopping by soon. In a busy mall, a big display of plush toys catches Young's eye. She's excited, wondering if she can get a new doll. Dojin grins and reminds her he already bought her some new clothes and she can pick whatever she wants. As he watches her, he realizes that some memories from the original Siu Dojin are softening his once numb feelings, Seeing Yang, he acknowledges that the original Dojin had a big heart for her. Yang stands in front of the toys trying to decide. Dojin quietly promises to protect the original Dojin's love for his sister. When she picks up a small toy and shows it to him, Dojin opts for a big beautiful plush instead, reminding her to get anything she likes. Yang beams at him, visibly grateful. After their shopping spree, they sit down at a restaurant, the table piled high with food. While they're eating, Dojin hears a girl behind him, clearly surprised to see him. He turns around to find a well-dressed girl flanked by bodyguards. She mocks his look and questions who Yang is, then sneers, asking if Yang is as much trouble as her mom. Her words hang heavy in the air, and Yang quietly wonders who this girl is that's bothering them. Dojin is fuming but keeps quiet while the bully girl smirks and asks Yang for her name. As Yang responds, the fat girl starts mocking her family, making fun of her basic clothes and comparing her to her mother, calling both of them pitiful. She looks at Dojin, trying to get a rise out of him, but he stays silent, seething with anger. Frustrated by his lack of a reaction, she turns back to Yang and calls her an annoying brat. Then she keeps pushing Dojin's buttons, sarcastically asking Yang if she knows what war means. Dojin shoots her a cold glare and tells her she's ugly as an orc. Stunned, she asks if she heard him right, but he continues to glare at her fiercely. As this goes down, Dojin flashes back to his tough past, growing up in extreme poverty, losing his mom at 7 and moving in with a father who didn't care about him at all. After years of neglect and rejection, he finally gets kicked out and ends up living with his grandmother and half-sister Yang, whom he's never met before. Feeling a wave of sadness, Dojin wonders how the original Dojin put up with all this garbage in silence, but he decides it's time for things to change. Turning to the arrogant girl with newfound confidence, he lets her know that living with her for 12 years repulses him. He calls her a mess, her looks, her nasty attitude, and cluelessness. He points out that she's just jealous of nicer, prettier girls and has a major inferiority complex. He tells her she's never going to be better than Yang, who actually cares about her brother's struggles. The girl glares at him, shocked, and then screams, demanding to know what he just said. A calm, smooth voice chimes in, saying it's been a while, and a confident woman steps forward. The girl rushes over to her, teary-eyed, as she complains about what Dojin said. The mom snaps at her to cut it out and stop acting like a drama queen. She turns to Dojin with a gentle tone, asking if he's okay. She tells him he should come by sometimes, even if he's busy. Inside, Dojin is boiling with anger at the hypocrisy of the woman who did him wrong for 12 years. She keeps provoking him, acting like she cares about him and his well-being. Dojin shoots her a glare and tells her their past doesn't give her the right to meddle in his life. He tells her to get out of his sight. Feeling humiliated, she storms off, fuming with anger. As she leaves, she can't help but wonder if this is the same Dojin who used to stay quiet even when he was getting hurt. Her daughter rushes after her, asking her to wait. In the meantime, Dojin tells Yang it's time to go, and she nods in agreement. He thinks to himself that the old Dojin is done for and hopes his enemies realize that soon. Meanwhile, as the car speeds away with the woman, her daughter, and the guards, the girl is still yelling angrily, insisting that Dojin should be punished. She keeps going on to her mom, asking if she even knows what Dojin said, but her mom ignores her, coldly calling out to one of the guards. She asks why Dojin is still alive. The guard, looking nervous, replies that the report says Kang Cholwoo left him in the rift zone. The mother loses her temper, shouting that Dojin was supposed to be dead and demanding to know how he's still breathing. The guard apologizes quickly, promising to check again. The girl is in total shock and asks her mom what she means by saying Dojin is dead. Her mom just stays quiet and brushes her off. Stunned, the girl yells, asking if her mom really tried to kill him. Still rattled, she wonders if her mom still has feelings for him. But then her mom blows up, grabbing her face and threatening her not to get involved again. She insists it's her problem and she'll handle it herself. She screams that she doesn't have any feelings for him. The daughter is scared and can't say a word. Inside, the mom is seething with anger, swearing that Dojin thinks he can challenge her, even though he's just a worthless, illegitimate kid. She's decided to make him vanish, no matter what it takes. 10 years back, rift zones started popping up all over, and they unleashed a wave of totally savage monsters that went on a killing spree. The world went into chaos, but everything changed when some heroes showed up to fight back. They also started collecting these magic stones from the monsters, which became the new energy source. Countries jumped on board, turning rifts into gateways, and now everything in industry is all about these gates and heroes. Basically, if you want to cash in these days, you've got to be a hero. Our guy hops out of his taxi and arrives at ACS Capital. As he walks in, he runs into a dude puffing on a cigarette with a couple of goons who wants to know who the hell he is. He puts out his cigarette and challenges our guy, asking if he really thinks he can show up here after messing up his crew. Our guy sits there, cool as a cucumber, and says the more he thinks about it, the more he realizes he's got nothing to lose. The goon in front of him looks confused, not really getting what he means. Our guy feels he deserves some kind of payback mentally, physically, and for all the stuff that goon has wrecked. This lung shark thinks the quiet kid has changed too. Judging by how he wiped the floor with his man, he figures our guy must have found some courage. He throws a comment about how it seems like our guy's got something to back him up now, asking if he wants to hear what happened to those cocky jerks who bragged about their own awakenings. The goon slams his fist down on the table, and a couple of his minions quickly join him to surround our guy, who's just chilling like it's no big deal. The goon starts talking trash, bragging about his crew of D ranks, saying they wouldn't even let our guy get a word in. But our guy, totally unfazed, tells him to sit down and shoots him a sharp look, making it clear he's not finished. One of the minions get all worked up about our guy disrespecting their boss, but our guy just calmly takes off the minion's glasses, leaving him stunned. Then, in a flash, he punches the guy right in the face, sending him flying with one hit. Now our guy turns to the rest of them, asking if they're just in a long sharking game because he knows they're also into forging IDs. While taking them down, our guy tells the minions he's looking to start making some cash, which means he needs a hero ID. One of the minions decides to take a swing at him, but gets knocked out instantly. Soon enough, all the minions are out cold. Then our guy turns to their boss and demands a flawless ID, making it clear he wants no trouble later. He gives him a deadline by tomorrow. The goon starts sweating, along with his two buddies, as they witness everything that just went down. The goon boss is curious about our guy's strength, wondering if he's even at B rank. When he doesn't answer, our guy presses him, and the goon quickly promises to get it done. With a firm grip on the goon's shoulder, our guy brings up something else. He casually asks if Han Hee-ju ordered him to take our guy out. The goon's face goes pale with fear. Seeing him still quiet, our guy digs into his collarbone, making him scream in pain. That's when the goon spills the beans about Han Hee-ju, revealing she's the one who wants our guy buried in debt and out of the picture for good. After hearing that, our guy asks the goon if that's why he trapped him at the gate. The freaky goon claims he doesn't know anything about it and swears on it, saying if our boy died, he wouldn't get his cash either. So why would he send him there? He puts his hands together and begs, insisting he's telling the truth. Our guy scratches his chin, thinking it over. Then he remembers Kang Chol-woo and realizes he's the one who dragged him into the gate. He tells the goon to get him all the info he has on Kang Chol-woo by tomorrow. The owner quickly agrees, and as our guy gets up to leave, all the minions bow down in fear of him. As he heads outside, Dojun's consciousness is trying to convey that he wants Grandma and Union to be safe at home. The sword god thinks he's got it and will set things right. The next day, our guy manages to get his hands on his hero's ID. He just strolls straight up to the gate. The system tells him that the hero's registration card checks out, but the level is below what's recommended. The system warns him to be careful and think twice before stepping inside. He's pretty annoyed because that company jerk should have bumped him up to A rank. Now he's got this warning hanging over him that his level is too low. So he's heading towards the Bansium Gate, which is a B-grade tunnel that really needs an A rank to tackle. Heroes are supposed to go in pairs or more, but because of how the tunnel's set up, it only lets solo players in. It's a B-rank gate with a D-grade scale, making it tough to go in alone. If luck's not on his side, he might end up facing hundreds of monsters all by himself in a dark, cramped tunnel. Pretty quickly, our guy runs into this massive snake monster. He's pretty impressed and gets himself ready for some action. All the snakes charge at him using their long tongues like weapons. But in the blink of an eye, he grabs the red stone by taking out one of the snakes like it's nothing. Those super venomous snakes, known as black fang snakes, start writhing in pain. Just a little scratch from these guys can paralyze you. After he lands back on the ground, he jumps right into fighting the other snakes, taking them down one by one with just his bare hands. When he finishes off the last one, he lets out a sigh of relief, glancing at his hand and thinking about how his earnings of 300,000 won are definitely paying off. But just when he thinks he's done, more venomous snakes come at him. Without hesitating, he goes all in again. He grabs them with his bare hands and squeezes until they burst, their venom splattering everywhere. With all the snakes taken care of, he gets ready to collect the magic stones. But there's a problem. He doesn't find any stones at all. He realizes it's probably like the last world, where the chance of finding magic stones from black fang snakes is under 3%. So he decides to hunt a few hundred more snakes. As he steps onto the next stage, he notices a couple of skeletons just chilling there. But then he looks ahead and sees what might be the boss. A giant, venomous snake that's massive and glaring right at him. Feeling a bit lost, he figures it's time to throw down, so he drops his backpack and jumps at the snake, aiming to take it out with one punch. He lands a solid hit, but to his surprise, it doesn't do anything at all. Instead, the snake retaliates and slams him against the wall with its tail. That was a serious hit from the boss snake, and our guy knows he's got his work cut out for him. The snake goes for another bite, but he dodges just in time. Quick on his feet, he leaps at the snake again and throws another punch, but it's just as useless as the last one. He realizes this snake is on a whole different level than the ones he faced before. Its skin is way tougher, and his punches aren't cutting it. He thinks that if he's got this strength, taking down a snake like this should be easy. Just then, he spots a cool old sword stuck in the ground. He checks it out and grabs it, figuring he doesn't have much choice. Even if the sword is a bit worn, it's all about how you use it. As the snake lunges at him, mouth wide open, ready to take a bite, he jumps at it, thinking he'll put the sword to use for a bit. He shouts at the snake, telling it to consider it an honor to be taken down by him. With his hands gripping the sword tight, both the snake and our guy come charging at each other. They clash with a massive thud, and somehow our guy walks away without a scratch. In the end, the poor snake passes out, but our guy's sword snaps in the process, which could have been a total disaster. He then looks at the snake's lifeless body and digs his hands right into it, finding something that resembles a half-finished sword. He figures it might just need a little sharpening to be useful. He thinks it's still better than a Namsen gate and feels a bit relieved. Deciding it's time to head back, he realizes that if a B-rank gate took this much effort, it's probably time to focus on restoring his strength. Honestly, he's just glad his old comrades didn't see him like this. The scene shifts to a guy who's cashing in some magic stones. The cashier, the same dude who got his ass kicked, tells him the commission is still 40%, just like always. The guy raises an eyebrow and asks if that's a bit steep, wondering if he can snag a discount since he's a regular. The cashier explains that the commission stays at 40% because they don't keep transaction records, which means no taxes for the customers. With this setup, it's an easy, clean deal. The guy shrugs and collects his cash without complaining, but he can't help but ask what happened to the cashier's face. The cashier just brushes it off, saying some crazy guy came in and took out their guards. The guy smirks, pointing out that the cashier must have let their guard down over some C-rank punk. He suggests focusing on skills instead of ranks, since those ranks are just for bureaucrats, and it doesn't mean everyone with the same rank has the same skill. As he rambles on about how the guards compare to regular hunters hunting monsters, the cashier can't help but think this guy is annoying. As he turns to leave, he casually tells the cashier that they're not strangers and to reach out whenever. But just then, someone walks by, and it's the same guy cashing in some stones again. The cashier starts freaking out and yells at that random dude, letting him know it's the guy who messed him up. That random guy notices that our guy has just a pretty face and starts to wonder if he's stirred up some trouble. He shouts over, asking if our guy is the one who made a scene and how a guy who calls himself a hero could hit an innocent civilian. The poor cashier thinks this new buddy is a seasoned hero with 7 years under his belt and knows a bunch of other heroes. But our guy just coolly tells random guy to mind his own business and scram. This catches the veteran hero off guard, and our guy teases him, asking if he's planning to get back at him or something. The veteran clenches his fist, looking annoyed, but then it hits him. Most heroes don't get taken out by monsters. It's usually because they're beefing with each other. Finally, out of all the clueless minions, this one actually has some brains. He just shrugs everything off, saying he's busy, and just walks away. The poor cashier is left totally baffled by it all. Then our guy turns to him and asks if he's got a lot of complaints about him. Next thing you know, he throws a bag full of mana stones at him and tells him to figure out the total. The cashier can't believe they're high-grade mana stones and starts wondering who our guy really is. After doing the math, he tells our guy it adds up to about 150 million won. Our guy, who thought he'd make bank from hunting all day, isn't too pleased with just 150 million. So he tells the cashier to bring him the money. The poor cashier, shaking with fear, keeps bringing up the commission again. But this time, our guy feels relieved when he realizes it's only 1%. He tells the cashier to get 148.5 million won. The cashier is seriously considering punching our guy because he thinks the commission is actually 40% and wonders if our guy even gets it. But instead, he says that for transactions over 100 million, he needs to get approval from his boss. Our guy just says to go ahead and get that approval right now. The cashier calls up his boss and explains what's going on. In the meantime, our guy grabs the phone from him and asks the boss if he's listening, demanding they bring out the money. The boss says he understands but just wants the cashier back on the line. Our guy calmly tries to hand the phone back, but it ends up smashing against the wall. Then he tells the cashier that the boss agreed and they need to get the money. The poor cashier brings a bunch of cash for our guy, who just grabs it and strolls out of the shop, casually saying he'll catch a good deal next time too. But for the cashier, it's anything but a good deal. 10 minutes later, the boss shows up, asking why he hasn't been answering calls and about that earlier conversation. The The cashier, feeling the pressure, tells his boss he's quitting because he can't take it anymore. The boss notices how beat down the cashier looks and decides to make a call to Jayan, asking her to come over. In the next scene, we see Jaya making her way to the shop, and as she walks in, a bunch of people are gossiping if she's really the Jayan. She gives off this hot witch vibe, and when she steps inside, the cashier freaks out, hardly believing it's actually her. She reassures him it's really her. Turns out, this witch is Korea's 4th S rank and the boss's niece. She's come in because her uncle is dealing with a headache over a hero and is forcing the sale of mana stones. She gets comfy and wants to hear all the details herself. The scene shifts to our guy in his new house looking like he's meditating. He's thinking that even if he hunts all day, he barely makes 100 million. At this rate, he'll be too late, so he needs to solo hunt an S-rank gate even sooner. The main thing on his mind is regaining his old strength, but the mana around here is pretty scarce. Even if he gathers mana every day, it might take him over 3 years. He figures it'd be great to get some decent gear, but there's hardly anything around, not even any junk equipment. Suddenly, he spots something and rushes to scoop up his sister, getting her inside quick. They close the door and their grandmother asks what's up. Just then, the ground starts shaking like crazy and everyone's wondering if it's an earthquake. Little Yunyong starts screaming, but our guy knows it's not an earthquake. Outside, a bunch of mana rifts are appearing all over the sky, rapidly expanding. It's a massive rift right over his house. His grandmother calls out, asking what's happening, but he tells her to stay put because it's dangerous. He dashes outside, jumping right into the rift without a second thought, while his grandmother and sister shout after him. Meanwhile, at the Seoul Hero Association, everyone's scratching their heads because they just detected a new rift in Mappo. This is the first new rift in 63 days, so the boss tells the team to get in touch with the White Lion Guild since they're closest to the area. He also orders nearby heroes to be dispatched. He checks out the spot where the rift showed up and realizes it's in the backyard of a private house. It hits him that having a civilian or even a hero step into a rift is a big problem. If that happens, no one else can enter until that person leaves. And if they end up dying, it triggers a rampage of monsters for 10 days in the rift area. If that goes down, the whole place is toast. The boss asks who's gone into the rift, and one of his associates says it's actually Dojun, the guy who lives there, and he went in to save his little sister. The boss figures he's just a regular guy, not a hero, and then asks how likely it is that a monster wave will happen. Turns out it's a crazy 99.9%. Hearing this, the whole crew, boss included, just pulls their hair out in frustration. Meanwhile, the scene shifts to Hong Hee-ju, who's shocked to learn that our guy is awakened and she's trying to wrap her head around it. Her bald manager tells her he hasn't signed up with the Hero Association yet, but clearly, he woke up during the last gate incident. She starts freaking out, shouting about what that Kang Chol-woo guy did. She's so mad, saying it would have been better if the manager had just taken him out himself. She's yelling at him, totally furious about why he's making everything so messy. She shouts at the manager, telling him to make sure to inform that Kang Chol-woo guy that if he doesn't take care of our guy, he'll have to pay back the cash. The manager, sweating, responds that he doesn't think it's necessary to contact Kang Chol-woo. She pushes him to clarify what he means. The manager explains that a new rift just opened up in Mappo, right by our guy's place. They've also confirmed that our guy went into that rift and the media will be announcing it soon. With this news, he suggests they won't have to deal with that guy anymore, and the manager agrees. But she insists that he keep an eye on things until it's completely settled, and the manager agrees to keep monitoring it. Inside the rift, our guy finds himself in a thick forest that feels oddly familiar. As he looks around, it's hard for him to wrap his head around the fact that this is the same spot he used to hang out in as a kid. The place is full of trees, grass, and that gentle breeze with tons of mana filling the air. Even the sky and clouds look just like he remembers. While exploring, he ends up on one of the paths and starts down it. Before long, he comes across this massive world tree that towers over everything. This isn't just any tree, it's a primordial spirit tree that's packed with super pure mana. He remembers that the last world fell apart because this tree got burned and the mana flow got messed up. Now seeing this tree still standing strong makes him wonder how it survived. He realizes he might be able to tap into the old mana from back then, so he heads inside that gigantic tree. While he's chilling inside that tree, he kicks off some serious meditation, just focusing on his breath, dipping in and out. Days fly by. 1, 2, 3, and he totally loses track of time, forgetting to eat or drink, spending 10 full days just zoning in on his breathing. Out of nowhere, he catches sight of these crazy monsters called Volcana, the same ones that torched the world tree ages ago. He steps outside, sees them, and gets ready for a showdown. He thinks a water elemental sword would have been pretty cool, but as the monster leaps at him, he shrugs it off, ready to smash everything in sight. With that, he reaches out, gathering a ton of mana, and unleashes it on the monster. In no time, he slices one in half using almost all of his mana. What he's really doing is releasing condensed mana in a key form and detonating it. He feels a sense of relief, realizing it's been a while since he let loose like this. The monsters, seeing this, get super angry and start condensing their own mana to shoot at him. But for our guy, their attacks are a joke, and he just brushes them off, coolly announcing that the world tree is safe. Grinning, he figures it's a perfect time to show off his mana skills. As the monsters gather mana spheres for another attack, he leaps forward, snatching the spheres right out of their mouths. Using the condensed mana from his hands, he takes them down hard. By the end of it, the monsters are completely wiped out, leaving only mana stones behind. He turns to the other monsters, saying that once he takes care of them, he should be able to snag the Undying Ember. He remembers it had a pretty high drop rate, so he figures it's worth a shot to see how many drop from these guys. Just as the monsters start lunging at him from all sides, they're no match for him as he starts taking them out one by one. Once he finishes them off, he spots the Undying Ember among a bunch of mana stones that dropped. He reaches out and grabs the ember, totally stoked to have gotten it again. After clenching his fist, he opens it up, and the ember starts to glow. He really wanted to pull more mana from the world tree, but with his current body, that's just not an option. Right now, he can only absorb this ember and turn his mana into a fire attribute. He's using the ember on his body, which looks like it's covered in flames, and honestly, it looks pretty cool. He remembers a time when he didn't even have to absorb embers, and now it takes him a full 10 minutes just to soak up one. He swings his arm around, checking to see if he feels any different. There are more embers and some mana stones scattered on the ground, so he figures he might as well keep absorbing as many as he can. Meanwhile, in the real world, hundreds of people gather to see the rift that has suddenly appeared. Nearby, one of the agents from the Seoul Hero Association, Bang Seung-gu, is angry that they're going through this stress because of Dojin, who's clearly crazy. Another agent standing nearby, Kim Hyunwoo, reminds him the guy went in to try to save his sister. However, Seung-gu believes it's a lie. He believes our boy heard rumors that awakening in the rift zones was easy, so he went in for that purpose. He wishes this random guy would just get himself killed alone instead of dragging everyone else into trouble by his stupid actions. Hyunwoo asks Seung-gu what their boss, Gilma-hyung, said, so Seung-gu hesitantly declares that the boss said to do things according to the manual and wait for the monster wave. Seung-gu wonders why they have to play it by the books, so Hyunwoo explains that rifts occur simultaneously in several parts of the world, which means Gilma-hyung is probably busy because of that. This is the first time this is happening. Regardless, Seung-gu realizes that the heroes from the nearby guild came to manage the situation quickly, but they're the ones who are in trouble because of that useless fool who jumped in. Seung-gu patiently waits for the guy who went in to come out so he can beat the crap out of him. At this point, the news reports that it's been 28 days since this new rift occurred. The Hero Association has also quantified the monster wave at level 1. When they talk about the mysterious ordinary person who stepped in, the loan shark, Hwang Changxiab, who borrowed from Dojin, sees Dojin's face on TV. He confirms with his right-hand man, Kim Eun-gu, and it turns out to be truly Dojin. Changxiab asks Eun-gu if he thinks it's likely that the bastard can come back alive, so Changxiab says our boy has less than a 1% chance if he's an ordinary person. However, Changxiab laughs that the Hero Association fools are misinformed when they rank Dojin as an ordinary person. Right next to him are the guys that Dojin pummeled. Changxiab asks Eun-gu if he thinks Dojin can return if he's an awakened one, so Eun-gu confesses that it would depend on his level. Since it's hard to make a judgment, Eun-gu believes that making it through a rift is much more than just being a good fighter. Confused by the remark, Eun-gu asks his boss what his plan is. With an evil grin, Changxiab says they'll sell his family's organs if he dies or put his family in debt on the basis of taking care of him if he comes back. Meanwhile, inside the world tree, our boy keeps absorbing energy and he doesn't know how much time has passed. At this point, he's absorbed hundreds of the unquenchable ember, and he can use fire mana whenever he wishes. Because of this process, he's become highly resistant to fire attacks. Considering only this increase in his fire attribute, one could say this is a much better state compared to when he was the sword god. Soon after, our boy steps out of the tree and covers it up. He thanks the world tree and goes ahead to pick up the red gems he got from slaying the volcano monsters. As he leaves, he realizes he may never get to see the world tree again. However, he promises the tree to be there to protect it regardless of the cost if they ever meet again, and it's in danger. Soon after, our boy steps out of the rift onto the street. He notices that there seems to be no activity within a 1-kilometer radius, so he wonders if everyone had evacuated because they were afraid of the monster wave. Still looking around, he senses a stronger presence in a particular direction, so he chases after it. After following the aura, he ends up behind Hyunwoo and Seung-gu, who are just chilling out. From their clothing, he can tell they're the same type of agents he encountered at the last gate he went to. It's clear that it's going to be trouble if he gets caught. To create a distraction, our boy generates a fire and launches it a few meters away, causing a huge explosion. The sound catches the attention of the men, so they rush to investigate. When they reach there, they find a building on fire with a crowd gathered outside it. When they reach there, Seung-gu wonders how the heck a fire randomly just started here. Meanwhile, our boy tries to escape, and he's impressed by how precise the targeting properties of his fire are. He remembers a comrade of his named Tusk, the continent's strongest fire mage from his world, and figures that he would have been impressed by this fire skill as well. Suddenly, something occurs to Hyunwoo, and he mentions that the rift seems strange. Not long after, the rift begins to thin out, so the men frantically rush there. Right before their eyes, the rift begins to disappear. Our boy notices but continues moving away. The next morning, the news spread abroad that the new rift that appeared in Mappo had disappeared in the early hours of the morning. This happened precisely 29 days after Dojin entered the rift area. Apparently, the Hero Association had been expecting a wave of monsters, but is shocked by the rift's disappearance. However, they plan to conduct a deep investigation to unearth what happened. The news also reports the unexpected fire that broke out near the rift at a local junkyard. The folks hearing the news speculate that Dojin must have died after entering the rift, and some of them believe it's what he deserves, since it's common sense to stay away from rifts. While they're chatting, they don't know that Dojin is nearby, camouflaged in a hoodie. One of the men corrects the previous guy for speaking so terribly about someone that had died, but the previous guy stands on his point that Seoul would have been set ablaze if that rift hadn't closed on its own. Our boy looks at them disdainfully but only walks past them. He wonders if he'll ever get to see the World Tree again since the rift has disappeared. Moreover, he recalls that there's still something he needs to protect. Our guy heads to Yeondeungpo ECS capital, the base of the Loan Shark. Inside the buildings, some of the guys chat about how they're going to rough up the old lady and the kids since the bastard Dojin is dead. They're certain their boss will drain out 10 times the value from Dojin's family. The perverts even begin to talk about how decent the little girl can turn out when she grows up so they can use her for business. Suddenly, our guy calls their attention and asks them where their boss is. Not long after, Chang-Sao shows up in the shop while humming some tunes and combing his hair like the fine man that he is. He gives a hearty laugh, certain that our boy is long dead and he can now rest. He asks Eun-gu what's on his schedule for the day, and he's told that he has lunch with his CEO named Buck. Since his evening is free, he asks Eun-gu to contact a certain Madam King to let her know he'll be coming that night to have fun with the new girls. When they climb the stairs, they're met by one of their huge underlings, who is being thrown several feet in the air. Before Chang-Sao can say anything, he's kicked to the ground. Our boy towers over him and tells him to crawl towards him like a dog. As Chang-Sao shivers, our guy takes his seat and waits for him. Dojin repeats his instruction, so Chang-Sao is forced to crawl towards him like a dog. As if that's not enough, the Dojin tells him to bark because a fool like him doesn't deserve to be treated like a human. He angrily tells Chang-Sao to bark like a dog, and the CDO is forced to bark like he ordered him to. After frantically barking for some time, the underlings are forced to turn their backs so as not to witness the humiliating scene. Regardless, our boy forces him to bark louder. Eventually, Dojin tells Chang-Sao that he knows he always pretends to be submissive, but he's always ready to stab in the back once he can find a way. He asks Chang-Sao if he thinks it's the first time he's dealt with scoundrels like him, so Chang-Sao begins to plead that he spare him. He even promises to be loyal like a dog. However, our boy tells him to shut his pee hole and punches him in the face. The punch sends the poor man flying backwards, writhing in pain as blood covers his face. Dojin calls for the bastard wearing glasses, referring to Eun-gu, and tells him he's the new boss of the establishment from now on. He tells Eun-gu not to serve under a piece of crap like this and recalls that it's not a big deal for their organization to take out their higher-ups. Our boy tells Eun-gu he has the permission to perform a coup, but Eun-gu pleads with him that his boss has deep connections, which would trigger an alarm. Instead, Eun-gu pleads that our guy spare his boss just this once. Annoyed, Dojin asks Eun-gu why he's thinking so slowly when he can just lock Chang-Sao in a barrel and throw him into the water or crush him in a junkyard, since that's the kind of stuff they do. When he realizes they're hesitant to do it, our boy suggests that he throw them all into a gate so monsters can feed on them. Scared as hell, Chang-Sao begs to be spared and promises to work hard like a dog forever. He pleads profusely, and it makes our guy hesitate. Even though he knows cutting off Chang-Sao would make things more efficient here, he becomes hesitant and begins to worry that he's gotten soft. Eventually, he agrees to spare Chang-Sao and offers him his hand for a handshake. Chang-Sao gladly receives his hand, excited that he's being spared. He doesn't expect what comes next as our boy envelops his hand in flames. While roasting his hand, our guy reminds him he only has one more chance to be a good boy, then he rips off his charred hand. Our guy just walks away as Changsab lies there screaming in pain. Before he leaves, he lets them know that they'll all end up dead if any of his family members get even a scratch on them. Now they're posed with the task of protecting his family all the days of their lives, even from external attacks. Based on official reports, Dojun has vanished along with Rift, so everyone believes he's dead. However, our guy heads out with his little sister, Yang, to go grab a bite. After reading on the news that he's dead, he realizes that revealing that he's still alive would only cause more problems for him. He plans to get Changsab to help him find a new place to stay soon, so he'll have to keep his head down for a while. Once he's done checking his phone, he smiles at his sister, who's busy munching on a burger, and she smiles back. Excited, she tells him that it's great that they're going to be moving to a new place soon. Dojun tells her she can go to kindergarten like her friends and then move to a proper school the next year. When Yang looks dejected, Dojun looks worried and asks her if she's not excited about kindergarten. Yang confesses that she's not excited because the kids there taunt her because she doesn't have parents. That surprises Dojun, so he tells her it's fine because she doesn't need to go. He tells her she doesn't need to be in close proximity with such bastards, so he suggests she can just enroll in school next year. It excites Yang that she doesn't have to go to kindergarten. Our guy wonders if he should just enroll her in a very high-ranking private school so no one can dare look down on her. A while before now, Dojun confronted Gu, Changsab's right-hand man, keeping a grandmother and a kid in a motel. In the flashback, he asks if he's out of his mind, so Gu explains that their company manages this motel so it's safe. Eventually, Dojun goes in to see his family, and Yang excitedly rushes to hug him. His grandma grabs his hand, glad that he made it out of the rift alive. There are tears flowing out of Yang's eyes because she was worried, and surprises our boy. Eventually, he tells them he's back for good. In the present, Yang asks him if he's also a hero, so he asks her why she asked and asks if she likes him to be a hero. However, Yang explains that she wishes he weren't one, so he asks her why. Yang explains that heroes fight terrible monsters and they sometimes get killed. With a grim expression, she expresses her hope that her big brother and grandma will live for a very long time. Her words catch Dojun off guard, but he doesn't say anything. Our guy remembers the harsh world from the past where he came from and recalls he was the only human survivor amidst many monsters. He spent a long time fighting monsters and he lost many things on the way. However, without him expecting it, something precious seems to have appeared by his side now, and that's his new family. Our guy hopes that he can live quietly in this time and protect this happiness. Meanwhile, at the Korea Hero Association, the founder of the association and director of the World Hero Federation, Net Wang, asks his workers if they were truly unable to find anything. The lady speaking to apologizes that they've been unable to find any information about what happened. Wang finds that annoying because this means that the rift, which just randomly disappeared, can appear again while they're not expecting it. The lady agrees that this is an unexpected situation and they may have been able to deal with it if a wave had occurred as they had expected. However, Wang tells her to be careful with what she's saying since this is a good outcome, considering the safety of the people. His remark makes her apologize for speaking too quickly. Now, Wang is one of the most revered heroes in the entire world. It's even speculated that he would be able to rack up the most votes in history if he decided to run for president, and he could easily overthrow large companies within the country if he wished to. However, he seems to have no interest in the presidency or even companies. The only thing that concerns him is keeping the people safe and being fully prepared for the appearances of rifts. Eventually, Wang asks the lady to do another in-depth investigation, even if it takes time. The lady receives the orders and explains that the residents of the area have agreed to sell their homes. Wang likes that, so he tells her to offer something more than the market price to help the people. He hopes to bring some comfort to those who lost their families after the rift appeared. While going through the records, Wang notices that the rift that occurred also occurred in other countries at the same time. To him, something seems out of order. The lady with him explains that the US and China already have things under control, but Wang explains that the issue is with the United Kingdom. They've been able to dispatch reliable heroes to other rifts except the one in the UK. Suddenly, Wang receives a shocking alert about the news of a wave occurrence in the rift that appeared in the UK. Meanwhile, our boy heads out to the exchange shop again. Once the attendant spots him, his eyes widen and he begins to sweat. He immediately informs his manager that this is the guy that has been causing trouble. The manager covers his newspaper and stands up to face Dojun. He asked our boy if he's truly the one who's been forcing people to buy low-grade crystals while he was gone. However, our guy is glad to see the manager. He informs him that he has a lot of magic crystals to sell at this time, and he was hoping to encounter someone on a higher level to help him process the transaction. Our boy throws the crystals on the ground, and the manager has a feeling that this guy has brought in more low-quality crystals, just like he always does. So he tells Dojin he's not willing to take his order and asks him to leave. Confused, Dojin asks him why he's not willing to trade, so the manager informs him that he's taking a major loss at a 1% fee, so he asks him to leave. With a smirk on his face, our boy tells him he's going to regret this. When the manager realizes our boy isn't getting his message, he reminds him that there's a reason that even gate centers charge a 5% fee. He soon begins to explain how this system works, but he decides not to, so he tells Dojin to get out and never come back. Unfazed, our boy simply opens the bag and pours the crystals on the ground. The quality of the crystals that pour out shocks the attendant and the manager. The manager quickly spots one of the crystals that looks like something called a hero's magic crystal. That crystal is of legendary rank and is worthy of an infinite price, so he wonders how this random guy is able to get his hands on it. However, our boy tells him it's okay if he doesn't want it. The story behind the hero's magic crystal comes from when a Mexican drug lord named Querzman was breaking up magic crystals to manufacture drugs. In the process, the power of the crystal awakened Querzman as a hero. Ever since, this strange crystal has been an important item in the world of awakening heroes and helping them increase their mana. The crystal is a great source of rare energy and is really high tier. Both men stare at him in shock, so Dojin tells them to help him pack it back so he can leave. However, the manager becomes really sweaty and begins to refer to Dojin as his customer. This time, he asks our boy to take a seat and wait for a short while. The attendant soon begins cleaning up the crystals while Dojin enjoys an ice-cold drink. Shortly after, the manager asks our boy if the 0.5% deal he's proposing isn't too overboard. So our boy tells him he can refuse the offer if he wants, but the manager apologizes that he was just curious. The manager asks him why he suddenly decided to lower the rates to 0.5%. So our boy tells him it's because he's angry. The manager quickly apologizes for his initial display of anger. Regardless, our guy tells him he's not here for apologies and asks him if he's taking the deal or not. While the manager bows before our boy to plead with him, the attendant considers our guy a bastard and a rude fool. Eventually, the manager is forced to bring down the rates. However, he tells Dojin that the only way he's going to accept this deal is if he's going to bring in a hero crystal every time he comes here. Our boy starts to head out, so the manager panics and offers a 9% transaction rate since they're already running a loss with their initial fee. Our boy's solution to him is to find a way to stop losing money in that case. Frantic, the manager decreases it to 8% and mentions that his boss would have his head if he found out. Our boy also gives him a smart solution to avoid doing things that can get him executed. To save the deal, the manager eventually offers 7% and states that this is the lowest he can go. When our guy tells him he didn't even ask him to lower it, the manager has no choice but to go to 6% and clarifies that at that rate they won't be making any profit. However, our boy doesn't believe him that a merchant will organize a deal when there's no profit. The attendant keeps watching them go back and forth until our guy tells the manager that he'll generously settle for 1% because he respects their relationship. In his mind, the manager accuses Dojin of robbing them, but in reality, he holds down his words. Dojin eventually adds that he's got about 7 more bags of these crystals, and the men's eyes widen. Upon hearing that, the manager immediately tells the attendant to go get the contract ready. Not long after, our guy receives a transfer of 67 billion won. After receiving it, our guy realizes his dream of buying a 110 billion won home is now possible. The only problem is that he won't be able to consistently get high-grade magic crystals at average gates. He hopes that he can find a way to move freely through the zones where the rifts appear. Suddenly, a message is sent across from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs about a wave outbreak in the long southern region of the UK. The message advises those who are traveling and touring to change their plans immediately. Dojin goes through the news once more and he remarks that folks that have no ability seem to love acting tough. In the past, regardless of the country or which association was involved, our boy knows he would have gone to seal to close the rift. However, he can't do that anymore. He goes back to meet his family and they start grilling some meat. Yum's mouth begins to water as they sit around the table where someone from the establishment grills the meat. On the other hand, Grandma doesn't look too excited, and she asks Dojin if 250,000 won isn't too much to spend on food. Dojin assures her that he made a huge profit this time so they can eat as much as they want. Yeon grabs one of the meats and sticks it in her mouth, and it causes her eyes to light up. She exclaims with a moan because of how delicious the meat tastes, but Grandma just looks at the whole thing in confusion. After going through the menu, Dojin asks for 4 servings of different meats for each of them. Grandma asks him if that's not too much because they may be unable to finish it, but our guy insists that they just eat as much as they can for today. When Grandma hesitates, Yeon picks up one of the meats with a fork and tells Grandma to have a bite with the tasty goodness. Grandma is forced to receive the meat and she thinks about how Yang is such a sweet girl. When she tastes the meat, Grandma also moans in pleasure because of how good it tastes. Not long after, Hyun Jae-in, the S-rank hero, steps into the restaurant. She approaches Dojin and asks him if they can talk for a while, but he asks her if she can't see he's having a meal with his family. Our boy asks her to come back when they're done eating, but Jae-in just stands there surprised. She wonders if this guy doesn't know who she is, but eventually concedes, wondering what kind of person would just send her away like that. Jae-in heads to the waiting area and everyone around keeps staring at her. They recognize her as the S-rank hero and world star, and they even murmur that she's even on the list of the top 10 most beautiful heroes in the world. They wonder who she's waiting for and who the heck can make Jae-in wait. Meanwhile, Jae-in sits there in anger and thinks about Dojin. She heard that they entered a gate for the first time 2 months ago and came out alive. It said that it was around that time that he awakened. He was also said to have died in the rift that appeared in Mappo, but here he is having a meal. Somehow, just the way the guy looked at her and how he spoke got her on edge. However, it seems impossible to her that a guy that just awakened can reach S-rank in less than 2 months. She remembers an oil tycoon named Kafmor who bought magic stones like no man's business. It took up to 5 years after his awakening before he could get to S-rank. She's certain that there's no way the guy is S-rank, which means he must have a different kind of ability. Soon after, our boy and his family head out and Yang thanks him for the meal. When they step out, they run into Jae-in, who has been waiting for them. Also standing close by is a strange man that shocks Dojin's family. The strange man is surprised to see Dojin, and he had initially thought he was hallucinating. Excited, he asks our boy how he was able to crawl out of the gate. This guy is Kang Cheolwoo, the guy who dropped the original Dojin in the gate that got him killed. Cheolwoo approaches our boy and towers over him, stating that he knew he's a cockroach. Meanwhile, Jae-in is shocked that Cheolwoo would show up at such a time. However, our boy doesn't say a word to Cheolwoo and asks Jae-in if she still has something to say to him. Juliet is taken off guard and Cheolwoo is surprised to see her here. Our boy tells her he'll hear her out, but he asks her to take care of his family while he deals with something. When she asks him what he wants her to do, he asks her to help get a taxi and get them home. He turns to Cheolwoo with a deadly look in his eyes and explains that he has some debt to collect. Hyun Jae-in quietly helps Seo Do-jun's grandmother and his little sister get into the taxi, showing care and patience as she listens to what Seo Do-jun asked her to do. She gently tells them there is nothing to worry about and kindly waves at the little girl with a soft smile before the taxi drives away. As the car disappears down the road, Hyun Jae-in breathes out with a big sigh, feeling relieved that they are now safe. At the same time, Seo Do-jun throws a very strong punch at Kang Cheolwoo, making him stumble back, hurt and surprised. Kang Cheolwoo gets so angry, his eyes turn red with rage and he starts to shake with fury, saying that Seo Do-jun will pay a heavy price for that hit. A worker from the restaurant hurries over, trying to calm things down, asking them not to fight in the restaurant. But Kang Cheolwoo gets even more angry, shoves her away with force and yells at her to leave him alone. Now the whole restaurant falls into chaos and scared customers rush out quickly, afraid the fight will get worse. Kang Cheolwoo screams at Seo Do-jun with rage, shouting that he will kill him and saying that Seo Do-jun must really want to die. But Seo Do-jun stands strong, full of confidence, and punches him again with great force, knocking Kang Cheolwoo off balance. Kang Cheolwoo stumbles back in pain, clearly shocked, trying hard to stay standing after the sudden attack. Seo Do-jun walks toward him calmly, looking at him with serious eyes and calls out Kang Cheolwoo's name. Then he reminds Kang Cheolwoo about the past, about how he tried to kill him by locking him inside a gate to die. Seo Do-jun looks angry now, saying that they still have a lot of things to talk about that cannot be ignored. Kang Cheolwoo answers with hate in his voice, mocking Seo Do-jun, saying that a useless person like him is not worth speaking to, and even adds that his own father left him. Seo Do-jun gives him a cold smile, and Kang Cheolwoo's eyes narrow with anger as he asks if it was his stepmother Hong Hae-ju who told Seo Do-jun to kill him. Then Seo Do-jun pulls out his phone and begins to record everything, telling Kang Cheolwoo to repeat his words clearly. But Kang Cheolwoo shouts in rage and refuses, yelling that he will never say that again. Kang Cheolwoo loses control and screams something terrible about Seo Do-jun's mother, calling her a shameful woman. He runs at Seo Do-jun with wild anger, ready to attack and hurt him badly. But Seo Do-jun blocks the attack with ease and calm power, using his awakened mana to strike back with huge strength. The hit sends Kang Cheolwoo flying and he lands hard, too shocked to understand how his attack was stopped so easily. Seo Do-jun rushes at him again with great speed, not giving him any chance to fight back. The fight becomes more intense, but Kang Cheolwoo can't keep up as Seo Do-jun keeps landing powerful hits again and again. The restaurant falls deeper into chaos as another worker grabs a phone, hands shaking, and tries to call the police. But Hyun gently stops her, stepping forward and saying she will take care of everything. The worker looks at her with thankful eyes, feeling safe now that someone strong is handling things. Seo attacks again and again, each punch full of anger and strength, completely controlling the fight. He finally hits Kang Cheol-woo hard one more time, sending him crashing to the floor. A voice from the side says with surprise that Kang Cheol-woo, a B-rank hero, lost so easily. Hyun thinks that maybe Seo is A rank now, but even then, he shouldn't be strong enough to be a B rank this easily. From far away, Hyun calls out to Seo as he walks calmly toward Kang Cheol-woo again. She watches him closely and tells him in a low voice that if he keeps going like this, he might die. She walks closer and speaks again, this time more serious, asking how much he really knows about Kang Cheol-woo. Seo stays calm and answers with confidence, saying he knows enough, and then asks her if that bothers her. Hyun replies right away, saying it does bother her, her voice full of concern. Then she tells him that Kang Cheol-woo's cousin is Kang Yongpyo, an S-rank hero, and that is why this is a big problem. Seo says he already knows that and asks again if that is really a problem for her. Hyun is shocked by how calm he is and thinks to herself that it's scary how he can act like this when he knows something so dangerous. She feels his behavior is way too risky and wonders how he can act like it means nothing. Still lying on the ground, Kang Cheol-woo speaks, telling Seo that the only reason he's still alive is because Kang Yongpyo has always protected him. He says Seo is acting recklessly and warns him that going against Kang Yongpyo means choosing to die. Hyun looks at Seo and asks if he is really not afraid of Kang Yongpyo at all. Seo answers with cold calmness, saying what really matters now is that she is starting to get on his nerves. They stand close now, looking into each other's eyes, both filled with sharp and strong feelings. Nearby, the frightened waitress, who saw everything, thinks with fear that Hyun had promised to take care of it herself. The tension grows heavy between Seo and Hyun as they stand still facing one another, both locked in the moment and neither backing down, and it feels like this confrontation might go on for a long time if no one speaks first. But then Hyun finally sighs and says sorry to Seo. She says she didn't want to come like this and didn't want to meet him in this way, but she had to because her uncle asked her to take care of the problem, and without wasting time she goes right into it and says she knows he's been selling mana stones at the shop and that instead of selling to others he should sell them to her now. Seo stares at her and coldly asks how much money she's ready to give for them, no emotion in his voice, just blunt and sharp words, and Hyun quickly answers that she will buy however many he has no matter how big or small the amount is. Seo gives a slight mocking smile and says that sounds very good to him, and Hyun stands tall and tells him with pride that the money of an S-rank hero is more than he could ever imagine, and as Kang Cheol-woo stays lying hurt on the ground, Seo calmly says he doesn't mind the deal but only if one simple condition is met first, so Hyun asks what the condition is. Seo answers in a cool and sure voice, saying the condition should be hard especially if it's Hyun who's going to take care of it. Suddenly the scene cuts and a loud crash is heard as a cup breaks on the floor. Seo stepmother is screaming in anger, her face full of fear and disbelief, yelling that he was supposed to be dead. She can't believe he survived the new rift, and the panic in her eyes shows that this was never meant to happen. In another part of the city, a second cup falls and shatters as a bald man stands frozen in shock and stutters out an apology, saying even the Hero Association thought Seo was dead. Seo stepmother is shaking with rage now, screaming at her staff and throwing things, shouting that she doesn't want to hear excuses, only answers and demands to know what they're going to do to fix everything. But the man in front of her hesitates nervously before saying he has something to report. He finally tells her that Kang Cheol-woo was completely beaten by Seo, and her eyes widen in disbelief as she cries out loud that Kang Cheol-woo, that fool, actually let this happen and now things are much worse. She starts to think hard and tells herself that if her husband or father-in-law finds out, there will be serious trouble. But even then, she tries to calm herself and says she'll find a way to handle it before it explodes out of control. She paces with panic and starts shouting again, saying if this spreads to the media, it could crash the stock market, and then yells at her staff to shut down everything now, control the press, cut all online communication, and the first step is to cut contact with the police right away. One of her employees steps up and tells her that they already silenced both the press and the police, and for a moment, Seo stepmother relaxes a little, then tells the man named President Lee that he did well, but he softly warns her that these actions won't last forever and the truth could still come out. President Lee steps closer and tells her something even worse. Kang Cheol-woo's cousin is none other than Kang Yongpyo, and her eyes go wide as she stands up fast and asks if he really means that same Kang Yongpyo, the S-rank hero. She remembers how people used to say Kang Yongpyo disowned Kang Shiolwoo because of his behavior, but now she learns that Shiolwoo was just doing the ugly jobs that Kang Yongpyo didn't want his name on. President Lee explains that now that Kang Shiolwoo has been seen in public like this, even Kang Yongpyo won't want his name tied to it, so he's probably already making moves to erase any connection. Seo-Jun's stepmother tells President Lee to set up a meeting with Kang Yongpyo immediately, and President Lee nods, understanding the danger. Then she asks if it's true that HC Capital, led by Hwang Chang-sub, turned against them and is helping Seo-Jun's family, and President Lee tells her that's true. Her anger flares up again, and she shouts that Hwang Chang-sub will pay for siding with Seo-Jun's family instead of staying loyal to her, and she orders him to get Prosecutor Park on the phone right away. In another part of the story, it's shown that 37 rift zones are now active in South Korea, but only 5 are about to become real gates, while the rest can only be entered by registered heroes. Hyun Joyeon shows her hero ID, and the staff confirms her identity, wishing her luck as she gets ready. She enters the rift zone with her team, trees all around them in a quiet forest-like area, but then Seo-Jun appears nearby, his face hidden under a hood, and he watches them silently, while thinking that even though there's only one entrance to this rift, they've placed a lot of security around it. Another hero shows up now, Yang Inju, an A-rank from the Korean Hero Association and also the leader of Bobby Guild. He speaks to Hyun Joyeon and says she was the one who wanted to hunt here first. She answers calmly, saying she didn't really have a choice and couldn't just sit back doing nothing, and suddenly she stops walking as she sees someone standing ahead. It's Seo-Jun again, now in their path, waiting for them, and Hyun Joyeon remembers when he told her earlier he had one simple condition to enter the rift, and if she accepted it, he would sell her all the stones he gets on her terms. Hyun Joyeon stands there thinking hard, wondering if Seo-Jun really came to this dangerous place just to gather a mana stones, thinking it's insane. But in the end, she reminds herself that she still needs those stones no matter what reason he has for coming. As her group walks deeper into the zone, which feels calm and green, Yang Inju asks her who that person was, and Hyun Joyeon coldly replies that he's just someone she knows. Yang Inju teases her a little and asks if he's really just someone she knows or maybe even her boyfriend, trying to joke, but Hyun Joyeon looks annoyed and answers firmly that it's not like that at all. She says she just owed him a favor and wanted to repay it. Yang Inju is surprised and asks again, wondering how someone like Hyun Joyeon, an S-rank hero, could ever owe anyone anything, but Hyun Joyeon cuts the talk short and says it's something like that and doesn't want to explain more. Suddenly, one of the team members tenses up and looks around, feeling something strange nearby, and Seo-Jun also turns his head slowly, sensing the same thing with perfect calm. All at once, giant monsters that look like huge flying birds swoop down from the sky without warning, attacking the group in a terrifying surprise, and Yang Inju screams when she sees them, calling them Cocastrians, a type of very dangerous monster. Hyun Joyeon reacts fast and takes command of the team, yelling out orders with strength and focus, telling Yang Inju and Seo-Jun to get into defensive positions quickly, while shouting at Jungho to guard their lower side. The battle begins fast and wild as Seo-Jun jumps high into the air, showing amazing power and speed as he goes straight toward one of the monsters. Everyone around him is stunned, watching how he fights with such skill and strength that they can hardly believe their eyes, and in the middle of all this, Hyun Joyeon shouts his name out loud, Seo-Jun, as the rest of the group watches in awe. Hyun Joyeon quickly starts giving commands to her team with sharp focus, telling Jin Ho and Dong to take the sides while asking another to guard the lower path. Seo-Jun dashes toward a nearby monster, his eyes shining with power and the thrill of battle. The monster lunges at him with violence, but Seo-Jun stops the attack with his sheer strength. Flames begin to swirl around his hand, monoflames signaling the buildup of a fierce blow. Then, without pause, he strikes. The explosion shakes the ground, roaring with power. Smoke rises and silence falls as Hyun Joyeon and her team stand frozen, unable to look away from what just happened. Seo-Jun walks calmly to the collapsed beast, standing tall and sure, like someone born to do this. One of the team members stares at the massive creature and asks in awe if it truly died from just one hit, but Seo-Jun answers in a steady voice, saying the monster isn't dead yet. He charges again and delivers the final crushing blow, making sure the beast will not rise. His teammates, even Hyun Joyeon, can't hide the shock and tension written across their faces. Yang Inju steps back and asks, still trying to make sense of it all, who Seo-Jun really is. Hyun Joyeon stumbles with her answer, flustered, and says he's just a strong human, but Yang Inju protests with frustration, saying that no normal human could beat a Cocastrian in one hit. Hyun Joyeon gives a sarcastic smirk and says even she could handle a monster like that easily, but Yang Inju doesn't accept it, pointing out how the monster didn't even manage to dodge a single strike. Her words are full of emotion and disbelief. Hyun-Joyeon's face tightens, the tension growing as her sister continues talking about how powerful Seo Do-jun is. In silence, Joyeon watches him, her thoughts heavy, wondering quietly who this man really is. Then, with clear seriousness, Hyun-Joyeon tells Young In-ju that their original plan has changed. She turns to her team and says they're going straight to the heart of the area now. Meanwhile, Seo Do-jun sits before the fallen beast, cutting its body with a knife, making it clear that he won't share the rewards with anyone who didn't help in the fight. Hyun-Joyeon calmly responds that she had no plan to ask for anything anyway. Then, with firm words, she tells him that someone with his abilities doesn't belong in a place like this. She looks at him in the full confidence, asks if he wants to go deeper into the rift with her. Seo Do-jun simply smiles and says it sounds fun. Hyun-Joyeon steps forward and tells him she knows the layout of the place well, offering him a safe path if he's willing to follow. Without another word, she dashes ahead into the forest at high speed, moving like a streak through the trees. Seo Do-jun watches her from where he stands, eyes following her as she vanishes into the distance. He stays still, thoughtful, then suddenly takes off running in the same direction, his pace fast and smooth. At the same time, elsewhere in the forest, another group of hunters is under surprise attack. Their screams echo in the trees as confusion spreads. Hyun-Joyeon continues moving like lightning, faster than anyone around her, cutting through the woods like wind. The scene changes to yet another hunting group. One of them asks Young In-ju, the guild leader, if they're going to move too. She asks him back if he thinks he can keep up with the others, and he answers honestly that he doesn't think so. Young In-ju turns to her team and says they're background characters today, telling them to keep hunting like usual. But deep down, she feels a heavy sadness, thinking that even as an A-rank hero, she still feels like nothing when compared to S-rank hunters like Hyuno Yan. Her thoughts drift further, admitting to herself that the same goes for Hyun-Joyeon. And for that man as well. Hyun-Joyeon keeps running at incredible speed, wondering if she should slow down a little. But just then, Seo Do-jun races past her like a bullet, overtaking her with ease. She gasps, stunned, her expression full of disbelief. Thoughts race through her head as she wonders how he passed her so easily, especially when she's known as one of Korea's top 3 fastest heroes. Seo Do-jun turns his head and smiles, telling her she's slower than he expected. He adds in a teasing tone that she looked like she was running to get away from him. Hyun-Joyeon yells back, annoyed and confused, asking who is even trying to get rid of who. Her face burns with frustration and embarrassment as she thinks to herself that she never did anything like that. Seo Do-jun stops for a moment to look ahead, while Joyeon struggles to catch her breath. Far off in the distance, a giant mountain rises into the sky, and Seo Do-jun's face shows clear interest in what lies there. Hyun-Joyeon notices where he's looking and nervously asks what he's thinking. She explains in a serious tone that the place he's staring at holds the boss of the rift, Kassarian, a beast that looks like a giant pterosaur nearly 20 meters long. She speaks firmly, telling him that fighting Kassarian is out of the question, that it takes at least 3 S-rank heroes to take it down. But Seo Do-jun ignores everything she says and asks one simple thing. Does the monster have a high-grade E-class mana stone? Hyun-Joyeon says yes, it does, and then suddenly realizes what he's thinking. She turns pale and asks quickly if he's really planning to fight it. Her voice rises as she tells him she didn't bring him here to act so recklessly. But Seo Do-jun gives no response, already rushing ahead at full speed straight toward the mountain. Hyun-Joyeon screams in shock and fear, trying to understand what he could possibly be thinking. Her whole body shakes with fear, and she tries to run after him, yelling for him to stop. But Seo Do-jun doesn't listen. He moves faster than ever, his goal locked in. The final image is of a massive mountain standing tall and mysterious, hiding what lies deep within its shadows. Moments later, Hyun-Joyeon stops in her tracks, stunned and filled with confusion as she tries to grasp what just happened, overwhelmed by Seo Do-jun's unbelievable speed and strength, her eyes shifting to the fallen body of the boss monster Kassarian lying defeated on the ground. Shock and astonishment flood her face as she realizes that the massive beast Kassarian was taken down so easily by Seo Do-jun, her mind flashing back to the terrible power the monster holds. She reminds herself that Kassarian is known as an incredibly powerful monster, one that only an S-rank hero named Park Hyul managed to defeat in the past. Park Hyul is famous across the land for slaying Kassarian, but Yudi could not defeat the beast in his first battle, struggling greatly despite being supported by 30 A-rank heroes. The memory darkens as she recalls that all of those A-rank heroes died in that battle, with only Park Hyul barely surviving. Later, Park Hyul launched a fierce revenge battle, this time accompanied by another S-rank hero and 200 A-rank heroes. A brutal and intense fight unfolded where Park Hyul finally succeeded in killing Kassarian once and for all, yet despite the victory, most of the heroes who joined the battle lost their lives. The great guild Resolute Logic, founded by Park Hyul, never fully recovered its strength even 3 years after that battle. Back in the present, clear signs of anger and frustration appear on Hyun Jueyan's face as Seo Do-jun sarcastically remarks that she knows perfectly well she did not contribute anything to killing the monster. Deep in shock, Hyun Jueyan thinks to herself that she would not have believed what she just witnessed if she had not seen it with her own eyes, repeating over and over in disbelief that the famous monster Caesarion was taken down with a single blow by Seo Do-jun. At that moment, Seo Do-jun lifts the massive mana stone obtained from Caesarion's body and gazes at it calmly without a word. With cold confidence, he tells Hyun Jueyan that he no longer needs a guide and that from now on he will proceed alone, turning and walking away as if leaving everything behind. But Hyun Jueyan stops him, surprised, asking if he does not plan to take other valuable parts from Caesarion's body, mentioning the beak, claws, and other parts with high academic value alongside the Man of Stone. Seo Do-jun turns back, his calm, confident smile appearing as he replies that those things are not worth his time or money. He explains that it is better for him to spend his time collecting more mana stones from different monsters, adding that she can keep those parts as payment for guiding him earlier. Hyun Jueyan silently watches Seo Do-jun walk away without a care, filled with astonishment, while he continues walking calmly, saying he does not need anything from that creature, his confidence unshaken as he heads toward a distant mountainous area. A group of other heroes appears, sitting in silence, visibly stunned as they begin to talk among themselves in disbelief. One of them mentions that Seo Do-jun borrowed a large bag and returned with it completely filled with mana stones, amazed that if their guild tried to do the same it would take 20 hours of group hunting, maybe even 3 full days considering the bag's contents. Hyun Jueyan sits on a rock, lost in deep thought and confusion about Seo Do-jun's true identity, wondering in amazement how he managed to collect such a massive number of stones so quickly. Yang In-ju is struck with fear, remembering Hyun Jueyan's words, shocked that Seo Do-jun defeated the monster Caesarion alone without any gear or armor. She thinks with deep alarm that this level of power is enough to make him the strongest in South Korea, possibly even in the entire world. Seo Do-jun is then shown calmly walking with great confidence, carrying another bag full of stones while the group watches him in awe as he fills yet another bag. They comment that if they told anyone what happened today, no one would believe them and they would be called crazy. One of them clearly insists they must never speak of this event to anyone since no one would believe it anyway. From a distance, the team sees Seo Do-jun and Hyun Jueyan talking to each other, but they cannot hear the conversation. The team begins discussing the nature of Seo Do-jun and Hyun Jueyan's relationship, wondering if there is something romantic between them. One member remarks that any man standing next to Hyun Jueyan must be that handsome, calling them an incredibly attractive pair. Yang In-ju starts thinking deeply, telling herself it would be strange if their relationship was just a passing connection, adding she is surprised Seo Do-jun treats Hyun Jueyan so casually as if she were just a normal person and wonders how anyone dares to speak to her like that. Suddenly, Seo Do-jun walks over and hands Hyun Jueyan one of the bags filled with mana stones. Hyun Jueyan is taken back by his action, staring at him in shock as he walks away without saying a single word. Yang In-ju, in utter surprise, asks the team why Seo Do-jun left so suddenly without even saying goodbye. Hyun Jueyan, still stunned, confirms that he really did leave without speaking. Yang In-ju then asks about the bags Seo Do-jun left behind and whether he really gave them all away. Hyun Jueyan begins explaining what happened exactly, saying that when she told Seo Do-jun he would become incredibly famous if word got out that he defeated Caesarion, he replied that he was not interested in fame and told her to handle it herself. The entire team reacts with visible shock and disbelief upon hearing this. Yang In-ju, utterly baffled, asks what kind of person Seo Do-jun really is. Hyun Jueyan remains silent, staring off into the distance once again, wondering deeply about Seo Do-jun. The scene shifts to Park Hyul delivering powerful, repeated strikes to a sandbag with all his might, screaming with a tremendous force that reflects his fierce determination. He charges forward with intense energy and lands an extremely strong punch, causing a massive explosion that shakes the training grounds. After the exhausting session, Park Hyul appears utterly drained and furious, prompting one of the onlookers to comment on his bad state. Park Hyul is introduced as an S-rank hero within the Korean Hero Association and the leader of a guild called Sweet Life. At that moment, a man in a formal suit approaches him, urging him to calm down and reminding him of the saying about the frog that crouches the longest jumping the farthest. The man explains that patience during tough times will only increase Park Hyul's fame and reputation. Park Hyul agrees, declaring his intention to make everyone who underestimated him pay dearly. The man assures him that as his power builds gradually, it will eventually explode, and when that day comes, everyone will kneel before him. He adds that no one understands better than Park Hyul how to defeat the monster Kasserian and smiles, saying Park Hyul will go down in history as the hero who defeated Kasserian with the smallest possible team, hinting that the Hero Association might grant him exclusive rights to hunt the beast. Park Hyul laughs confidently, affirming that he truly knows best how to defeat the monster. He looks at an old group photo, reminding himself that his guild has become much weaker over the past 3 years. But he continues speaking with unwavering confidence, claiming that he remains the only one capable of defeating that giant flying monster. The man smiles and agrees that no one else can do it but Park Hyul. The story shifts to another location, showing a large building along with some files and photos, where the name Seo Dojun Jun is mentioned. A man named Kang Yongpyo, another S-rank hero in the Korean Hero Association and cousin of Kang Cheolwoo, holds the documents and asks curiously if they are about Seo Dojun. The confirmation follows, and one of the men explains that Kang Cheolwoo tried to get rid of Seo Dojun by sending him into a rift a few months ago, but Seo Dojun did not die. Instead, he awakened inside the rift. Hong Hiju is mentioned as the CDO of the T Group and second daughter of the Dogu Group, who was the client requesting Seo Dojun's elimination. Kang Yeonpyo asks in surprise why a wealthy woman like her would care about a nobody like Seo Dojun. It is explained that Seo Dojun is an illegitimate child of the T Group, taken in at the age of 7 but cast out after Seo Dojun's stepmother gave birth to her own child 6 years ago. Kang Yeonpyo smirks sarcastically, saying blood relations do not matter in the world of the wealthy. He asks how much money Kang Cheolwoo received for the job and is told it was 3 billion. Kang Yeonpyo remarks that the amount is too little. The man adds that Kang Cheolwoo ended up in terrible shape, covered in burn scars, completely blind in both eyes, and on the verge of death. Kang Yeonpyo is shown preparing to play golf, commenting on how brutal the person who beat Kang Cheolwoo must have been. He angrily states that if he had carried out the attack himself, he would have cut off the attacker's limbs and crushed their skull. The other man mentions a rumor that Hyun Joyeon helped Seo Dojun during that incident. Kang Yeonpyo becomes furious and angrily questions why Hyun Joyeon would help someone like Seo Dojun, demanding to know the nature of their relationship. The assistant seems hesitant, cautiously stating he is not sure what their connection is, but says that thanks to Hyun Joyeon's testimony to the police, the case was quietly closed. Kang Yeonpyo becomes even more furious, yelling at the assistant to find out the nature of the relationship immediately. He insists that they must know every detail, stating that if it is not a romantic relationship, there must be some kind of deal or arrangement. The assistant becomes flustered and says he will look into it right away before rushing out of the room. The rage on Kang Yeonpyo's face is unmistakable as he grips his golf club tightly and hurls it to the ground, expressing his frustration. Kang Yeonpyo thinks to himself that Seo Dojun's stepmother will soon come looking for him since she will want to hire him for the job Kang Cheolwoo failed to complete. A sly, confident smile appears on his face as he tells himself that she is a rich woman with plenty of money, so he will benefit greatly from this situation. Meanwhile, Seo Dojun walks alone at night under the moonlight toward his new home, thinking that hunting in rift zones is far more effective than hunting in gates. He realizes that from now on he will need Hyun Joyeon's help to enter and exit the rift zones. Hyun Joyeon then talks to Seo Dojun about the mana stone obtained from the monster Kasserians, saying that selling the stone would cause the media to chase after them day and night, trying to find out who killed the monster, so for now she prefers to keep it hidden. She also tells him that if he wants fame, she will not stop him and asks what he intends to do. Seo Dojun smiles calmly and tosses her a bag full of mana stones he collected from the rift. He then decides internally that he must find another way to access the rift zone without relying on Hyun Joyeon. Seo Dojun decides to return to the new home prepared for him by Hang Chang-seop to rest for the time being. Upon entering, he immediately notices something strange that makes him uneasy. He closely examines the shoes at the entrance and confirms that there are strangers inside his home. Suddenly, his little sister screams with joy and shouts "Yupa" when she sees him. Seo Dojun turns toward the room to find a group of men in black suits standing suspiciously behind his sister and their grandmother. The expression of the man sitting at the center clearly shows he holds a high position. Seo Dojun's sister runs toward him at full speed and clings tightly to him, repeatedly calling him out with visible fear. Seo Dojun calmly and cautiously asks the men who they are and what they are doing there. The seated man calmly introduces himself as Prosecutor Park Chae-yang from the Sewell District Prosecutor's Office and asks Seo Dojun if he knows someone named Hang Chang-seop. Seo Dojun remains silent and tense while his sister clings to him in fear. The prosecutor informs Seo Dojun that he is under emergency arrest on suspicion of involvement in illegal high-interest lending operations run by Hang Chang-seop through HC Capital. Thanks for watching, everyone. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.